So for me, War Within will be the best expansion that World of Warcraft ever has been having since these past years. I would say that it will be the best expansion we have gotten since Mist of Pandaria. And I'm going to give you some examples and also some reasoning behind my expectations for War Within. Now, they could make me lie, obviously, but from what I've seen on the alpha and from the promises on a few interviews, I think that War Within will be the expansion that we all waited for PvP, for PvE, I would say also for a leveling experience. I think overall will be the better expansion, but hopefully they do work on it and they keep on working on it and not like drop the expansion out of nowhere for the next expansion. Now let me talk. Dragonflight for me has been contrasting because of few factors. I would say if Dragonflight started with season 1 and ended with season 1, I would say that it was probably a great expansion, like the best expansion we have since Mist of Pandaria, I think. Even Cataclysm to a certain extent for PvP. But they decided to make it season 2, which is obvious, and then they have a season 3 and then season 4. And what do you know? Season 3 and season 4 could be seen as literal filler seasons for PvP at least. For PvE, I think you have Emerald Dream, which is cool, and I think it was best regarded as well. But I think in PvP we did get the lower end of the stick and the shorter end of the stick. Excuse me. It would be great that they actually don't drop PvP like a fly at the start of the winter. It would be nice that we get a bit more attention. But I think with War Within, they do fix a few things. I do feel like War Within has a lot of potential. I think War Within, as it stands right now, has probably the most promises for PvP at least. We have class talents that are going to be updated. And again, people may say, for example, that it's going to be terrible with the hero talents, like you see on my screen, which I think with hero talents will be even more fun. And they will probably tune it for PvP, probably halve it by 50%, which often they do for new stuff, like for example tier sets. They might do dividing by 2, for example, or increasing the HP pools in PvP to have a good correlation between the damage you're doing and are you going to survive those damages. But like for example, if I'm saying that I'm very excited about Affliction Warlock, is probably a very big understatement. I think Affliction Warlock is looking great. I know that some people may think that Malefic Rupture is not the way to go to have, like, let's say, some focus, which I understand, but everything screams to me that you can play different playstyles. For example, more of a dot heavy playstyle, more of a Malefic Rupture playstyle, or you can even play more of a Shadow Bolt playstyle, for example. And then you also have like different hero talents, for example, Hellcaller, which on paper Wither is going to replace Corruption, which is going to do insane amount of damage, for example. So it's more of a dot playstyle compared to, let's say, the Soul Harvester. So it's very fun to play around, and overall I'm happy with the direction on a few specs, on a few classes. And then you have like some stinkers, which in my opinion are Hunter specs. For example, I think Beast Mastery with Pack Leader is very boring. I think Dark Ranger is also kind of boring for what it should have been. It feels like it could do more. It would do more. It should do more. But currently, what stands is like a whole passive tree where you don't get too much like of a fantasy fulfillment, I would say. But overall, you have potential. Now, are they going to work on that potential and make it better? That's up to them. But there is potential, and I know some people may say like hero talents are going to make it more complicated in PvP. I would say that complication in PvP has been always the case in TVC, in Wrath of the Lich King, in Cataclysm, where you could literally blink and die. But people were not complaining about that back in the day, or they were complaining about other stuff. But right now we are like in a era where we want things to be easier, and often forget that we fell in love with World of Warcraft with the complexity of World of Warcraft. Now, I'm going to say that it should be easier to read some stuff. For example, if you get like a debuff like on you, you should know what kind of debuff it is without like having to see 10 different icons and like having to understand what's happening to you without a weak aura. It should be like regrouped. So for example, snare should be the same icon, should be the same effect. I understand that for fantasy wise, if you have a chain of ice on you, it should like look like you are chained of ice. But again, a 50% snare should be like universal to everyone. If it's 70%, then it should be special, like for example, slow from a frost mage or a slow from a DK. But overall, I think they're doing a good job with that. They're also updating it, so it might be that we are going to that direction. It would be nice to have more add-ons integrated into World of Warcraft instead of like having it with a third party. But that is what it is at the end of the day. And I think people are in a state where you think you do, but you don't. Where add-ons always existed since TBC and even vanilla, to be honest. And again, it was never a discussion of we need to have add-ons gone. But now we are like in a state where we want add-ons to be gone because we think we're going to get more players in. But often than not, I think what makes players stay has nothing to do with add-ons or not. It has to do with the leveling experience, has to do with the incentivization of those players to stay, and a good tutorial without like saying you have to do this, you have to do that to have this. They should like implement tutorials like more intuitive inside your leveling experience. Not everything like baked into level 1 until level 10. But that's another discussion, of course. What are like the things that I'm very excited about? Because that is the conversation today. I think for PvP, having BGs being the focus, like Ian says, which is the game director, is a great thing. Again, if you have been watching my videos these past days and even my live streams, I do a lot of Battleground Blitz, which I call solo QRPG, because for me it is literally solo QRPG. Until we have rated, of course, you could say it's solo BG, but it is solo QRPG because it is literally what is going to happen in War Within. And I think solo QRPG is the best step for PvP into the direction of everyone is welcome to do rated. I think solo shuffle is very punishing for the new player. I think not everyone loves solo shuffle. I think if you're a ranged DPS, often not you're going to be very frustrated because of meaties, and if you're a meaty, you're going to be very frustrated of 3 caster lobbies, for example. So there is no real good feeling lobby because they cannot really say, look, we need 2 meaties and 2 ranged, because again, what is a ranged? Is it a hunter or is it a mage? So again, you have multiple things to look at, and I think solo QRPG is going to be the right step to implement PvP into a broader audience. I also think that there is multitude of possibilities for esports to also flourish from that. I love esports, but I think esports should never be the focus out of a game, because you want to have easy accessibility for new players to come in. And if you're catering towards the esports scene, it caters towards the veteran, and obviously a new player cannot really relate with a veteran. Even if you're watching a pro player stream and play, often it's very hard to just relate to that guy, because in general he has multitude of add-ons, he has a UI completely different to you, he has a playstyle completely different to you, he plays with other players that are the same level as him. So it's difficult to learn from someone that is from that level, because it depends on how he brings out. For example, you could learn a lot from Peekaboo because it has little to no add-ons, he plays a certain way, and he can explain very well what he's doing. So I think World of Warcraft just needs a bit more push into the direction of they can explain you what is happening without shoving it to you once you're level 1, for example. I think that's the right direction, solo QRPG. I think solo shuffle should be updated. It should not be left like this. It should be a one-rounder. It should stop being called solo shuffle, just call it solo queue arenas, or like implement that in 3v3, make it possible to solo queue in 3v3 or duo queue, and those solo queuers or duo queuers are going to end up versus each other, and team trees are going to face other people that are pre-made as trees, and that would be making the queue more alive, the MMR more alive, and overall the pool of players being higher in 3v3, which makes that ranks are going to be shooting up. That is the way you have to go for. I think Soul Shuffle as an idea is fantastic. I think the implementation is terrible. If they actually had a good implementation and a good follow-up, I would say keep it like this. But right now it feels like they have no idea on how to fix the queue times. They don't have any idea to fix the MMR difference between a healer and a DPS. So the one thing that you can do is make it just 3v3, the queue, the bracket, and that's it. And then you find an algorithm where solo queuers and duo queuers are going to face each other instead of like versus teams. That's as simple as that. Now, to talk a bit more, RBGs are going to probably be changed. Instead of 10v10, it will be 8 versus 8. It will be the Blitz format probably, and that's for the good thing, which means that you could be able to be playing without a tank, and you're facing another team without a tank. That would help LFG often. What happens in LFG, you're going to find a group, and you're often going to either search for a rogue, or a tank, or a specific healer, for example, mistweaver. You really want a mistweaver in your team. Or you're specifically searching for a balance druid. Now with Battleground Blitz and their format, you will often maybe not search for a tank, because then you can say, look, we have a flag carrier, it could be a TH or a Fel druid, and we're going to play versus another team that has no tank. So it's going to be interesting how the dynamic will be changing. I think the format is also very incredible with team play. So you can actually say, look, this team is going to rotate between those bases, that team will be rotating, that team will be ghosting, and you have like a lot more dynamic, in my opinion, in those matches where RBGs often just wins or loses after a team fight. Often. So yeah, that's fantastic. And one thing is also for PvE. I think in PvE, what they did with duels, I don't know how it's called, the small format world PvP, like world PvE content, pretty much. I think that's a good thing. I think it's good for the gearing process. I think overall it's casual. Now they need to give something more, because I feel like from what I've heard, once you have done it once, it doesn't really need to be done a second time, because it feels like, yeah, okay, what's next kind of feel. And they should like be implementing like something where you could infinitely go higher and higher for like more cosmetics or more rewards. And again, I want to stress out, if you want to be making War Within an incredible experience, you need to reward your players. And I know you will have to double down your art team. Please make a bigger art team for PvP and for PvE. Maybe what they could do is easily make great tier sets for both PvP and PvE different, not just recolors. I know it's a lot of work, but imagine if PvP had a different tier set than PvE, and it would be also a great one, like a great looking one. Imagine the amount of PvEers actually wanting to do PvP to get those tier sets. And the same, imagine those PvPers actually doing PvE to get also those cosmetics. I think that's the way to go. And it depends on like their want and need and capacity to do that. I think if you're doing that, you're going to have huge success for War Within, or maybe for the next expansion. But overall, those are my observations, I would say. I'm very excited for Hero Talents. I think it plays very well. I also think Dragonflight has a great blueprint on the talent system, which now they're going to build upon, and you do see the differences with a few classes and specs. I think Affliction Wotlk is one of them, where you have a lot of choices that you can make, and you can play different playstyles. More of a dot heavy playstyle where you're going to refresh it and get more damage. You have more of a Malefic Rupture playstyle where you're going to do a lot of damage in AoE, or more of a Malefic Rupture playstyle where you're going to do a lot more PvE, a lot more single target. There's also a playstyle where you're going to get a lot of soul shards, which are going to help you with the demonic souls and such. You're going to also have like a different playstyle with your shadow bolt doing a lot of damage, and oblivion being now a talent that you can take on the affliction tree, which opens up a PvP talent, which again I hope they are going to do also a bit more work on the PvP talents side for every single class. I think there is also a few things that you can play and like play around and switch on to have a lot of fun. I think there's multitude of things that you can do now in the class tree that are interesting. For example, Black of Gluttony is going to be very strong in arenas, like a 60-second CD on a great heal, and also an additional hell like hot, which is going to be very fun. Overall, I think they're learning from their mistakes. Now I wait for like literally enhancement shaman to be interesting. Hopefully they're going to do something interesting. You see there is a lot of like different connections now, so hopefully they're going to learn from it, and we will see some interesting changes. But overall, I'm looking forward to. And I know that some people are like scared about the complexity that they can add with hero towns, but I think the hero towns are going to be additive to your class fantasy. And yeah, I know some people are saying, but I don't want to play a Stormbringer, I want to play Totemic, but with a Stormbringer like paint over it, I would say. And I understand that you want a fantasy, but you maybe don't want the playstyle of a certain hero talents. But I think not everyone can be happy 100%. I think there will be people that are very against it because of, like, let's say the fantasy they got from a hero talent that is very interesting to play or very underwhelming to play. But hopefully they're going to fix that with adding more cool stuff. So I'm looking forward to. I think overall, I think really that the game will be in a great state in War Within. I look forward to War Within. I look forward for solo QRPGs in War Within. I think it's going to be booming. They just need to add rewards. I think if they add rewards, like for example a mount on 2v2 solo QRPGs, even RPGs, and even solo shuffle, I think it could be like the best expansion ever for PvP. Right now, I do feel like it's going to be the best expansion ever for PvP, but it all depends on implementation and if they're going to make me lie or not. If they're not making me lie, then we're all going to be happy. If they're going to make me lie, then it is what it is. We're going to have to protest a bit harder, but it is what it is. Again, thank you for watching this video. I really appreciate you. If you want to catch any of my lives, please do subscribe to my channel. We also do some like videos. Again, I think every single day or every 2 days we have a good video, and we also have some gameplay. We have some guides up that are going to be very soon up, and hopefully you do learn something, or you are entertained by it, or you're finding it interesting. Have a great day. Bye.